You are listening to the Next Play podcast, the playbook for high-performing leaders who want to exceed their full potential. From walking on the Ole Miss football team at 5'7", 150 pounds and earning a full D1 scholarship, to coaching thousands around the world and working with massive organizations like IBM. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me as I interview some of the most successful people so you too can learn how to focus on always moving forward by deciding, planning, and executing on the next play relentlessly. This is Richie Contartesi with the Next Play podcast, and today we have a very special guest by the name of Hilary DeCesare, someone who's been the CEO of multiple companies in Silicon Valley, has raised over $10 million for just one of those companies as she was growing it. She's coached corporate executives for 20 plus years, has an amazing method called 3HQ we're going to dive into. And if you could see behind her, this really cool thing called a book called Relaunch that I'm going to highly, highly suggest you jump onto, with someone who has a lot of experience coaching. And I had the pleasure to meet her in person speaking at an event that she was a part of. So Hilary, thank you so much for saying yes to this podcast. And I'm excited to jump into your experience around leadership and what you bring to the table and 3HQ and the relaunch method. So thank you so much for being here.
Richie, let's do this. I love it.
Awesome. Let's jump right into it. So how did you get into business? I always like to start there.
Okay. Really? Well, when you think about it, I was actually selling things out of my mom's house when I was 5 years old. I was putting on neighborhood swap meet sales, but it was my mom's good stuff. And I was selling out from under her all of her, little knickknacks throughout the entire house. And then she realized things were gone and she thought we had, somebody was stealing from us. And I finally fessed up saying, no, I sold all those things. And so she went around to all the little neighborhood friends and collected those things back. 5 cents for a pair of clogs from Holland. You got it. It was the beginning of entrepreneurship.
For sure.
But then I ended up getting the entrepreneurial bug and ended up starting to have smaller companies, little companies that I would do in college. And that just grew and grew. And I had a crazy event happen when I was at the University of Colorado. I was originally going to be pre-med, then I was psychology, and I wanted to get into this very crazy, awesome business class, personal selling, and it was my senior year. But what I didn't know is that it was like the coveted class. Well, there was a big snowstorm, and so I rode my bike in the snow, got to this place where I could sign up instead of doing it online because the computer systems were down, and I ended up getting into the class by some complete fluke of nature, and ended up in this class, and it was opening up me to the world of entrepreneurship. But it didn't happen quite so fast because I ended up getting right into Oracle, and that, high-tech company out of Silicon Valley. Spent 10 years there and finally was just like, you know what, I got to do something for me. I got to get back into that entrepreneurial, position. And so I created my first business after that as an actual coach to companies that had gotten venture capital funding and help the executive team scale and grow their businesses. And then I was like, wait a second, I need to be doing this for myself. I need to have a company that I impact people. And so that's when I got into a lot of tech companies around keeping kids safe online that just grew and grew. And finally, I really feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be right now. I created Relaunch about 5 years ago, really to help not only executive business people, but entrepreneurs be able to get out there and relaunch their business into massive growth, but also be able to relaunch their personal lives so that it's one and the same when you say, you know what, I really love my life.
Right. I love that. That's so, wow. Okay. So Oracle, 10 years, came in, started your own business. Walk me through that. Where Where is that? Is that the business that you have right now? Is that the coaching business you have today?
No, actually, it's it's not. It was kind of an interesting situation. The president of Oracle, Ray Lane, went to Kleiner Perkins, which is one of the top venture capital firms out there. And I had had the pleasure of being on his elite SWAT team, flying to and from with their senior executive level management. And I would be a participant sitting at the table with these people. And so he saw me in action as I was working with large companies. And when he left to go to Kleiner, he said, "Hey, would you come over and help with all the portfolio companies? Would you come
Wow.
over and do a 3-day session?" And I said, "You know what? I think that's exactly what I need to do." So did it and created my first consulting business, which now you call coaching, but it was called
Right.
consulting then, and it was called White Space Inc., INK, with the premise of, let's stop thinking about all the mistakes, all the things that you've done that have not worked. Let's erase the whiteboard and let's start from this point going forward with, how are you going to be successful? What is
Mm,
now coming down the pike? How do we make sure that success is not a pipe dream, but it's actually a reality?
awesome. And so, okay. And so from there, is that where did you go from there?
Well, then I started to just, I realized I had helped over 25 companies grow, scale, sell their businesses, and I wanted to do it for myself. And I was going
S-
through a massive relaunch, which is the name of my company, Relaunch. And I realized that, you know what? I need to create and develop these companies because I've now been doing it for everyone else. Let me do it for the people and really impact what I genuinely am driven towards, that I wake up in the morning and say, I want to serve these people.
Right. So you were basically helping other companies raise capital, scale, and sell. And you're like, hey, this is something. Why am I not doing this for myself?
Absolutely.
Got it. So these companies that you're helping, are they the same kind of company you have now, or were these like tech startups?
No, actually, what's so fabulous is that given my time at Oracle, I managed general business, which was any company up to about 250 million for financials and manufacturing. And so I learned a tremendous amount about different industries. So when I started to, kind of put out there that I'm doing this, I ended up getting not just high tech, but every industry that you could possibly imagine. And so I feel very fortunate that my background has been one that, I haven't seen one yet that I haven't been able to impact, because business is business and there's a lot of core fundamentals that people still to this day need direction in. And there, we have a process, you mentioned it at the very beginning, called 3HQ. And that is something that I incorporate into no matter who I'm teaching, no matter who I'm coaching, no matter who I'm helping. This is a core fundamental framework that every single executive, CEO, entrepreneur, solopreneur needs to be incorporating. And the idea behind it is 3HQ stands for head, heart, higher self. And too many executives are stuck in their head
Mm,
and can't even get out of their head in order to really see what they're trying to work on and the goals and what they're trying to accomplish. And so we say you got to tap into your heart. And for some, it's like, oh no, the heart, how is that really going to impact me? Well, let me tell you, in today's world, if you're not a heart-based leader, you will end up not being able to scale and grow your company. And you will not
Is
be a leader. You'll end up,
yeah.
more of an employee in the company.
And that was kind of like my initial. So what I was thinking is, okay, so is this 3HQ, did this come from all of these businesses that you helped scale and exit? Is this kind of a function or a method or a model that you've just formulated over time from those experiences simplified? That's kind of what I've
You got
gathered from it.
You got
Okay,
it.
so walk
It's
me.
a
Okay, so you got
repeatable,
the.
it's a
Go ahead, sorry.
repeatable process.
It's a repeat. Okay. So I'm an executive. I'm stuck in my head. How do I use this method to, and what exactly, like, what would you say is the biggest challenge that they would have,
Mhm.
and how this method will come in and help them through it?
So first off, it's terrific that we're going to go into 3HQ. I just want to back up for 2 seconds and talk
Sure.
about relaunch and
Yes.
the actual relaunch as what is happening out there right now. It is so imperative for people to say, admit to the fact that we have global relaunches happening, which could be anywhere from the pandemic to financial crisis. We've got professional relaunches happening where you've got the hybrid market, you've got industries that are cratering, you've got new technologies, new adjustments, more millionaires came out of 2008's crisis than ever before. We're going to see the same thing now, but you got to be poised and in line to be able to take advantage of it.
100%.
And then you've got your personal relaunches. People are moving. They are, finding new relationships not only in their personal life, but also in business. Things have changed. So first and foremost, we need to understand that a relaunch is any one of those areas. And for the first time in history, people are not just having one or two of these, but we really have kind of the trifecta of all three happening at the same time. So now it's a matter of, all right, when you think about your business as a direct reflection of yourself, how are you setting yourself up both externally in the business as well as internally? And that's where 3HQ comes into play. When you think about the head and you think about being a head-based leader, you're headstrong in this. It's really that, what are your thoughts? What are the thoughts that you have about your company? Are you already putting out there that, hey, Q1 is never our best quarter. Q3 is always, one that we really, that's our big one. What are the overall thoughts that you have about the business? Oh, I think that my engineering team isn't that great, whatever it is. So we first identify that. Then we really look at limiting beliefs, and a company actually has limiting beliefs, those beliefs that hold them back, that, we've never been able to get a product out and launch it in the first pass. It's always a 2-phase. There's so many different ones. So we identify what are those limiting beliefs of the company. And I have a process that is actually, trademarked. We've got this, undergoing a patent right now. And what it's for is,
Nice.
if you think about this, you've got bugs, which are beliefs underground surfacing, bugs. And those are your limiting beliefs. Company-wide, you got limiting beliefs, you got people. And if you're a solopreneur, you have your own limiting beliefs. How you feel about money, how you feel about success, all around, your worthiness, your imposter syndrome, all of these are these limiting beliefs. So I've got this process to eliminate, to blast your beliefs. It's called Belief Blaster, and we hit the bugs. And then last but not least, you often hear about identity, but you hear about it with individuals. Well, your company has an identity. And what is the identity that you really want to be taking your business forward in the next 12 months? How does that impact everybody? What does that look like? So that's the head-based.
Can I ask one question? Because I think identity, it's something that I talk a lot about because people feel identity, right? So I'll give you an example, and then I want to talk about what you're referring to in a company standpoint. So for a person, for example, I really struggled in math, but in 7th grade, I had this math teacher that came in and said, you're actually really, really good at math, and I can't wait to watch you prosper in this class. And I felt like I had to live up to that identity. And so how do you do that with companies? How does a company have an identity, and how can, you know what I mean? I'm just thinking it because I think that's really powerful. I'm just curious, do you have an example or a thought around what does that look like? Because I think it's really powerful.
And it's very interesting because what you just said. So I actually was held back in 1st grade. And my teacher was like, emotionally, she's not ready. I had a near-death experience when I was 2, and there was just a whole lot that happened. And so I kind of had that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not this, I'm not that. And so I had to overcome that. And one of the things that came from this is that first initial sense of managing and changing my identity. Once I realized that as an individual, we do this, we say, where do we want to be with our goals, our objectives, our priorities, and we start to modify those based on where we want to go with our identity, with how we're really showing up. You start to realize that a company has core values, a company has a mission, a vision statement. And so many companies have lost track of does that vision statement really represent where the vision of the company is going right now? And if it's not in alignment, then the identity of the company is off, trying to do something where this is what we're focused on, but the vision of leadership. And as you said, each and every person has an identity. That's true, but there's also a corporate identity. And so we do a really great job in trying to really understand, does your vision and your mission statement and your values and your corporate culture map to where you ultimately are trying to take the company? Because then you can help with company culture by going in and actually helping with training and fueling that company culture that maps to the identity of where you're taking the company.
Yeah, no, I think that's really powerful and super important. So I like that. Okay, cool. So you have the head. So where does it go from there?
So then you go into the heart. And when you get into the heart, it is all about that why, where the vision really starts to take place, because you can say one thing, and then how are you conveying that to your people? And so when you get to the heart, it's a matter of looking at, and especially these days where you have the great resignation, you have quiet quitting going on, where people are staying in their job, but they're miserable. And so what we want to make sure is, are we implementing something that people are really going to stand behind, that they are emotionally connected to? And this is very different, because if you think about the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it was all IQ, all in your head, problem solving, intellect. Then in the 90s, it became all about EQ. Emotionally, how are you emotionally connected to your people? And the problem is we bifurcated those. They were very separate. They weren't one and the same. They almost like, if you were too emotional, that people were like, oh, you know what, he can't run the company because he can't bring in some of those brass tacks of, like, we need revenue. Like, it's great that you're all nice to you've got this great culture, but nobody's doing what we need to do to impact the business and bring in the revenue. When you start to bring your head and your heart together, and you start to look at them in alignment where they are virtually one and the same, that's when you start to understand that people also have their own version of departments. Do they like being in this department, or is there already self-sabotage going on within the groups? How many times have you heard one group, one team not wanting to work with another team? That's where you get this concept of, a lot of times you hear from, corporate people, we want people to love your company. We want that, connection. But here's the problem. You can't take them where they are directly into that loving concept. You got to take them slowly through where they are to like, to love. And that's what we do. We get them to buy off on the process, buy off on what they're trying to do, understand that they are an impact and how they are going to be able to drive their own success and their own future success and their own further, advancement in the company and their impact. And then they start to feel like they have that connection, and they're not leaving as fast. And so once we get past that, then it's all about in that heart center, it's the culture. Right. And instead of these, what's happening right now, which is, cultures have literally blown up. Office space is empty. We're trying to get people back in, start collaborating again, start feeling like they're part of a company again. For many, they've been new hires. They don't even understand what the company is all about. We want to make sure that there is that connection.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you think companies are going to get back in offices?
It's interesting. I have read so much in the last few days, reports that have come out on what really is happening. And we're not seeing it in certain industries being implemented at the highest level. I have a CEO that I work with that literally said to his people, hey, I'm expecting you to be in 3 days a week. Well, they did not end up agreeing to that. They didn't buy off on it. And they ended up, instead of coming in 3 days, they're not even coming in 1 day. And so,
I think that's not going to last. I think companies are going to be like, nope, we're going back to the office because too many people are lazy as hell at home. I don't think it's going to last. I think there's no chance that it's going to last.
I think that what's going to happen is that we have to first get past one of these global relaunches. We have to first get past this sense of, the scare that we're going to get sick. When we're talking about security guards or companies that are actually insisting that everybody that works there from the corporate has to wear a mask, that puts fear into everyone, right?
Right.
So we first need to understand that we're not ready to have everyone go back in. Now, with inflation, with things that are happening on the global economic side of things, that's actually going to push people, because people are going to be, having to start letting people go. So the people that are working there aren't going to have any choices to say, hey, I'm not interested, but we're not there yet.
Yeah,
And
these companies are going to stop. The revenue is going to change, especially ones that haven't put in the culture and accountability and stuff like that. And then they have no choice but to let people go, or say, hey, we have to go back to the way that was working.
And I don't believe it's a go back. I don't think that we're ever going to have a new normal. I think it's going to be a new different. And I don't think that we're going to be able to, go back and say, this is the way it was. Here are the different groups. I think there's much more now of an opportunity for, as people come back, to really change how you're viewing the culture of your company and what you really see. And this is the time when I talk relaunch, this is the time to really be understanding, what do you want? How do you want this?
Because you can redo it. You have a chance now with whether people are coming back or it's a certain number of days or whatever, but you have a chance to reset and figure out what that culture is. And because sometimes when you're in the midst of it and you're so deep, it's hard to change a lot of people's behaviors. But since it's fresh, you have a chance to do it. And if you miss that opportunity, you miss that opportunity.
And there is a short window here before people, as they are starting to figure out the hybrid model, and they're starting to insist that you come back. There is a short time period where you can, teach a dog new tricks. They often say you can't, but in this scenario, yeah, you're coming back in, because a lot of these people are still new to this overall environment. There was so much movement, so many people like shifting and leaving jobs and doing new things, that now we really do have the ability to put that stake in the ground. And I think once you allow people to get out of their head, you get them into that heart base, you put them together, and they're constantly, moving into alignment as we continue to kind of ride the wave of where things are going. That's when you tap into the higher self, the best version of the company. And when
Is that the third? That's the third.
And when I talk about the best version, it's this understanding of every single company that you go into, that I go into, that we've been a part of, has an energy, has a vibration. It literally has one. And what we need to be working on is, if everything is energy, and we know that to be true scientifically, this isn't just Hilary talking about it, although I am a deep neuroscience geek. This is what I've been doing for 10 years. I got a psychology degree. But if you think about that, and all of a sudden you realize that you've got a low vibrational company, what does that really mean? When you start to think about universal laws, you start to think about, the idea of even Carl Jung, who is one of the founders of psychology, modern day psychology. It really is this concept of what you're putting out there is what is going to be. Henry Ford said it best when he said, it's what you believe it to be true, or you don't believe it to be true. It's accurate, right? It's whatever you're projecting out there. So if your company has low energy, what do you think that's doing to your revenue? It's creating a wall against it. Literally is creating a lower energy of people going out there and wanting to work with your company. And so, again, science based around this. And what we go in and we really do is help you elevate the energy of the company, starting at the executive level, mid-management, employee level. It's everybody. And then we get people into their G zone. Their G zone is their great zone. If they were to have massive success in whatever they are doing, how would that impact them, and then thus impact the entire company? That's the first G. Then the second G is really around this growth. How do we then take the identity of the company, create it as an identity of this person who wants to have this greatness, this path to their own success, and how do we grow them to be that person? And then there has to be this element of the gratitude. And what I'm seeing now is that companies that implement some type of gratitude practice within the business, where it's not just this like, hey, once in a while as a manager, I'm going to say, hey, Richie, you're doing a really great job. It's
Right.
actually having something within all the way at the top management that value-based is that we're saying we value our people. And these days, to value the individuals in the business is as important as what we're doing with our clients right now. Because again, that energy will flow from your employees out towards those prospects and clients and want them to continue to work with you even more.
I love that. Okay, cool. So that's super powerful, and I think is really missed, that higher self. I think this is something that's really powerful. How did you I understand this is from your past experiences, but how did you come up with this 3HQ in this order? Like, how did you create this program this way?
So I think that I mentioned that relaunch has really been a way of life. And I often am called the relaunch queen because I've had now I think about 26 significant life impacting relaunches. And I often say that, you know, the only way I've survived through these relaunches is to use 3HQ within my own personal life and my professional life. And now as we get further along and as I'm, you know, coming out of even yet, my dad just passed away a couple months ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear.
You know, yes, but everybody, you know, if I were to, I haven't talked to one person that is not going through some form of a relaunch. So when we realize that, and I look back at my life and I started to think about what I've done to get through these critical transitions and make them into more of a transformation that's a positive, versus you can have relaunches or transitions that didn't work out so well. But how did I overcome them and how did I advance them? I looked at that. And I also have interviewed, you know, hundreds, but especially on my podcast that I have, which is the Relaunch Podcast and a radio show, I interview people on their most significant relaunches. And in asking them, whether it's on air or after, I'll often say, would you ever go back and change anything? And we're talking near-death experiences. We're talking people zipped up in body bags, losing limbs, health crisis, loss of family members, you know, terrible things that have happened to them physically. Not one has ever said, I would go back and I would change it. Because there is an advancement, there's a growth process that comes with it. And
Right.
you know, the cover of the book says, spark your heart to ignite your life. And it really is. How many of us are just dulled out, that the spark's not there anymore, that we've
Right.
allowed it to go out.
Right.
But it's time.
Why do you
now.
think that is? Why do you think, and what percentage of people do you think that happens to? And why do you think that is?
I think percentage wise, with what I've seen now, granted, we're, you know, we're still in a heavily combustible state right now. I think that we're up to about 70% that are really struggling. We know that
Yeah.
loneliness has hit an all-time high. We know that, you know, drug use, medication is at all-time high, stress levels, you know, and I've worked recently with a company that actually is monitoring stress throughout the world. It's at an all-time high. So I might even be like, you know, not even high enough in terms of what I'm thinking. But here's what I do know, that when you feel hopeless, when you feel like, God, I'm stuck, or you're not even willing to go there, it's because you have choices and the choices are overwhelming. Like, yeah, I could do this, I could do that, I could go here, I could implement this, I could have this training, I could, you know, and all of a sudden it's not that there are lack of choices, it's the lack in the decision making that is really impacting people. It's we're confused because of the decisions. and I just want to throw this out since I know that you teach a lot, you said, on identity, that when you think about a thought has an emotion attached to it. When a thought and an emotion are repeated over time, it creates your belief. You can never get above your belief system because it will always keep you exactly where you are. So you may say, I want to be this, right? Be, do, have. I want to be that person. But your identity, your subconscious is still holding you back. That's why the belief blaster, that's why doing it in a neuroscience way, which is what I teach, you actually get rid of it. It's not willpower. It's not like I'm motivated, I'm going to do this. It actually is in the brain, understands a breaking away of this. It actually takes it and separates it, not to be put back together, but to be created as a new empowering belief. So when you think about this, and I said, decisions are hard to make, then you have to ask yourself, well, if I'm making decisions based on questions I'm asking myself at that level of identity I am right now, my answers for my decisions are going to keep me exactly where I am. And that's what's happening in the world right now.
Yeah. So you mentioned something, I think it's such a good point. So you mentioned that in 2008, the recession created the opportunity for millionaires and a lot came out of it. You know, obviously with COVID, not only did we have a kind of a forced recession, like a not real one, but we injected money into the market with it. What are your thoughts on where the economy and where businesses are going today, you know, and how can leaders use, you know, 3HQ to their advantage in this environment? Like what are your predictions? Where do you think we're going? Do you feel like, you know what I mean? I'm just your thoughts on that.
One of the things that I know to be true about myself is that I am highly intuitive, and using the 3HQ process creates a heightened level of intuition. And we actually teach that, how to actually tap into that gift that you have within you, that, you know, connection to source. And so as you say that in terms of a relaunch, when you think about your business and you're thinking about, you know, how are you going to create new lines of revenue for yourself? How are you going to look at where the world is right now? And as, you know, Gretzky said, you know, go to where the puck is going, not to where it is. That's what we have to be thinking about. We have to be looking at it from not being comfortable where we are, but getting innovative and creative in where we're going. And what does getting out of your head allow you to do? It allows you to bring in new areas of creativity.
Right, because you're not just spinning and thinking.
Spinning and thinking and processing. When you think about fear, fear is something that is in the future that hasn't happened. When you are in your present, that's when your intuition actually can come in. When you're living in your past, again, you're living in your fear.
Right.
And so I really think that as we move forward, the reason I believe more millionaires are going to come out of this is because we now are giving people an opportunity, not the ones that are like constantly looking in the past to redo what we've already done, but how do we create, as I said, not a new normal, but a new different.
Right.
That means, and why do more Fortune 100 companies, why are they bringing in the practice of meditation? Why, when I go out and I start talking to corporate, that they're like, wait, hold on. Help me understand, like, how is intuition a tool? Well, you often hear about women's intuition. You know, we don't hear about like men's intuition. We hear about women's intuition. But why is that? Because we all need, and there's nothing like, it's the feminine, masculine energy that I'm really talking about, not from a female, male perspective. And so 3HQ is something that brings an actual manageable, simple process to people to allow them to open themselves up to the next version of where they're going.
I love that. And I love that. I think it's a lot of people are looking at recession as like, oh my gosh, it's just this thing, and you know, our sales are dropping or what have you. And I think having a solution for recognizing what's going on, and then a path or a model to follow to move forward is super important. So what's your next play? What's the next play for you?
So the next play really for me is I've been working with entrepreneurs using 3HQ in their professional life and their personal life. And now we're taking it to the corporate level, exactly as you said. So, how are companies going to be able to take their businesses into the next 12 to 24 months? They're going to have to be incorporating 3HQ in. So we have a process to be able to do it. You heard it's like 3 steps in the head, 3 steps in the heart, 3 steps in that higher, best version of your company. And what's great about it is, because I've been doing this for as long as I have, over 2 decades, I've been in corporate for as long as I have, and I've worked with, my own companies and others. I've realized the complexities of rolling out something and how to make it easy and understandable. And something that I also have to say is that you keep hearing me say it's a personal and a professional system, because when you can start to impact people on both levels, we always have this big struggle between work-life balance. How do you do that? You don't do it. You 3HQ it. That's how you end up having a lifestyle of success.
I love it. How can people find you? And where's the book? How do they get the book? Let's start there.
The book is on Amazon. So
okay, perfect.
It's just Relaunch, and it's Hilary DeCesare.
Can you hold it up? Because I think it's cool. I like the cover.
Sure can. I even have a little page mark there. There it is.
Nice.
Everybody.
Love it.
That's right.
I love it. Okay, cool. So you can get on Amazon. So look it up, Relaunch. Definitely get it.
Yeah,
okay, perfect.
Great gift to give yourself as we're coming into year end.
Oh, yes, it is a good gift. Yeah, I like that. 2023
is the year of you. And if it's the year of you and you're the direct reflection of your business,
let's go.
It's the year of your
how can we find you?
And so you can also find me just going to relaunchco.com, relaunchco.com. Or if you have your phone readily available, you can text to 55444. Again, that's 55444, and just type in relaunch.
That's easy. Okay, perfect. Cool. Hilary, thank you so much for being on the show, for sharing 3HQ, your method, and how it's helped you and the clients that you've had have so much success. So definitely reach out to Hilary. She's awesome. Get her book. Do not miss it. Relaunch. You can get it on Amazon. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Richie, thanks again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Next Play podcast. If you liked the show, make sure to leave us a review. For more resources, visit relentlessuniversity.com or download the free Relentless University app. And if you're interested in having me speak at your next event, visit relentlessrichie.com. Until next time.